My brother Eric walked into the house with his lawyer and said, "Dad didn't leave you anything. All the house and properties are in my name now. You need to get out of this house." I was being kicked out of my father's house where I'd lived for 35 years. I calmly smiled and said, "Eric, ever since you started planning this scheme, I've been building my own case file." At that moment, the lawyer's face went white as a sheet. "My name is Michael Thompson. I'm 52 years old. This story is about how my younger brother tried to steal our father's inheritance, the 5-year court battle that followed, and how I finally found true justice. But the most important part is this. I sensed his plan 10 years before it happened and quietly prepared my own defense. My father, Robert Thompson, started with a small construction business in Denver, Colorado. Over the years, he built up quite a portfolio, 3 commercial properties and 2 houses. He was a hardworking man who believed in fairness. I'm the older son and always worked alongside him. Eric is 8 years younger, and after college, he moved to Los Angeles to start his own business. Dad was always fair with us. "Son," he'd tell me, "when I'm gone, everything will be split equally between my 2 boys. You've worked hard, but Eric is my son too." I respected that. After all, I'd helped build this wealth working with Dad, so I knew I deserved my share. In 2013, Dad started having health problems. Heart issues. The doctor told him to take it easy. He began transferring more responsibilities to me, but Eric saw this as an opportunity. He started visiting Dad more frequently. Where he used to visit 2 to 3 times a year, now it was 2 to 3 times a week. My suspicions started in 2014. Whenever Eric was alone with Dad, he was constantly whispering things to him. I'd overhear comments like, "Dad, you're getting older. This business is wearing you out." Or, "Michael's pretty comfortable already. Maybe you should think about taking some rest." One day, while talking with Dad, he said, "Son, Eric thinks you're overworked. Maybe I should reconsider the will." That statement struck me as very odd. Why would he want to change the will? That evening, I discussed it with my wife, Sarah. "Michael," she said, "you're being naive. Can't you see what Eric's doing? This kid has always been jealous of you. Now he's working some angle with your father." Sarah's words stuck with me. The next day when I visited Dad, I started paying closer attention. Eric was indeed constantly feeding Dad negative things about me. "Michael's never home. He's always busy with work, not spending time with you." Or, "I love you more, Dad. Michael just thinks about money." In 2015, I made my decision. If Eric was playing games, I needed to be prepared. But I wasn't going to do this openly. I would work quietly, systematically. First, I made copies of all of Dad's legal documents, property deeds, old wills, bank statements. I secretly copied everything and created a hidden file at home. Second, I started recording Eric's conversations with Dad, their phone calls, the manipulative things he said during visits. I bought an old cell phone just for recording purposes. The third step was the most important. I found a trustworthy attorney. James Mitchell had been Dad's friend and was a family law specialist. I explained the situation to him. "Michael," he said, "you're being very smart. In inheritance cases, preparation is everything." In 2016, Dad's health deteriorated further. Eric accelerated his operation. Now he was visiting 4 to 5 times a week, constantly filling Dad's head with negative stuff about me. One day, in a conversation I secretly recorded, I heard this. "Dad, Michael's kids are doing fine. They're in good shape. But I'm all alone. You need me more. Maybe you should adjust your will accordingly." Dad passed away in March 2017. Heart attack. We couldn't get him to the hospital in time. At the funeral, Eric seemed very upset, hugging me and crying. "You're all I have left, Michael. Dad's gone, but we have each other." But as soon as Dad was buried, Eric's true face emerged. 3 days after the funeral, he came to the house with a lawyer I'd never seen before. "Michael," he said in a cold voice, "Dad changed his final will. Everything's in my name now. You need to move out of this house." I was shocked, but not surprised. I'd been expecting this. "Eric," I said, Dad wouldn't do that. Can I see the will? The lawyer interrupted. Mr. Thompson, the will has been notarized and is completely valid. Your brother is giving you 1 month to vacate this property. At that moment, I realized Eric hadn't just manipulated Dad. He'd manipulated the notaries too, but I was ready. Okay, I said, but I want to consult with my own attorney. Something this big shouldn't be rushed. Eric smiled. Sure, Michael, talk to all the lawyers you want. The outcome won't change. The next day I met with James Mitchell. I explained the situation and showed him all the documents I'd been collecting for 2 years. James reviewed the file and said, Michael, these documents are very valuable. But let's also examine this new will. After examining the fake will, James laughed. This will has major errors. Let's get a handwriting analysis. The dates don't match up, and most importantly, it contradicts your father's medical records from that period. What do you mean? I asked. I mean this. On the date this will was supposedly signed, your father was in intensive care, unable to sign anything. These documents are forgeries. The court case began in May 2017. At the first hearing, Eric was very confident. His lawyer presented the fake will and said, This is the final will and testament of the late Robert Thompson. But I was prepared. James stood up and said, Your Honor, my client has been collecting evidence for 2 years. We can prove this will is fraudulent. First, we presented Dad's medical records. On the date the fake will was supposedly signed, Dad was in intensive care, unconscious. Second, we submitted the secretly recorded conversations where Eric manipulated Dad, badmouthed me, and discussed inheritance plans. Everything was on tape. Third, a forensic handwriting expert examined the signatures. The signatures on the fake will were different from Dad's actual signature. Eric's lawyer tried to object, but the evidence was overwhelming. The judge made an interim ruling. This case involves serious evidence of fraud. An expanded investigation will be conducted. During the investigation, even bigger truths emerged. Eric hadn't just forged the will, he'd also tried to gain control of Dad's bank accounts. He'd attempted to withdraw money using forged powers of attorney. The most shocking part was that Eric hadn't done this alone. He'd conspired with a corrupt notary, paid bribes, and even had fake documents created. In October 2019, the final judgment came down. The judge said, Eric Thompson's submitted will is fraudulent. Robert Thompson's genuine will stands. The inheritance will be divided equally among the legal heirs. But the story didn't end there. Eric's document forgery constituted a criminal offense. The prosecutor's office opened an investigation and filed charges against Eric. Everything concluded in 2020. Eric was sentenced to 2 years in prison for document forgery, suspended, but his record was permanently tainted. The inheritance issue was also resolved. All of Dad's assets were divided equally between us according to law. I continued living in Dad's house, and Eric took his share. But the most important outcome was this. Our family relationship ended completely. Eric never called after that day. We never spoke again. My wife Sarah said, Good riddance. You trusted him too much anyway. That man was dangerous. Looking back today, I understand this. If I hadn't prepared back then, if I hadn't sensed Eric's game early on, I could be homeless today. But while I was trusting him, I was also watching him. The most important lesson from this story is, even family members can plot against you, but you can sense it early. The key is not to panic, but to prepare quietly and systematically. For 10 years, I documented Eric's every move because I had a gut feeling. That feeling didn't deceive me. Sometimes the closest people can commit the biggest betrayals, but if you're prepared, justice will prevail. Eric thought I was stupid, but I was watching him from the very beginning. In the end, we found out who was really smarter.